Here. So, what's up YouTube and Twitch? Speedmaster24 here, back with another live stream. Now let me pull this up really quickly. Let me pull up the mod view really quickly. Now, as the title says, I am indeed making a D&D campaign from scratch. Now, I do have some ideas already written down. Brainstorming on the train rides and such, and the general idea is a bit of an isekai theme. I have always wanted to try and implement something along that style, but the problem has just been making it work. Now, I'll be using 5th edition D&D as the base system, and if you understand nothing of D&D, don't worry. I will be kind of explaining things for everyone. Oh, hold on, I'm having stream issues. Is this okay? This is good. Let me just tweak some settings really quickly. Sorry if anyone's watching this in the beginning. Just got to make sure this is working well. There we go, that should be it. Now, I did start writing the class ideas first before I got around to the world, just because the class ideas were kind of the first thing I thought of. Now, that doesn't mean I have nothing in store for the world. I do have some general ideas. Now, if you are watching this, you can just put it in the background, and I'll kind of just read over whatever I'm writing. So you shouldn't be missing much if I just keep speaking, or at least I'll do my best to speak over most of the stuff. Mostly since I'm on phone and this won't be as visible as other situations. Now, overall, the few classes that I do have are Jock, Nerd, Cheerleader, and Goth, which I really went for the stereotype idea. Kind of thought, if I'm going to make classes, I might as well make them kind of differential. That was the wrong word to use, but the idea in mind was to just kind of go off a cliche and see where we go. Now, I do have a potential addition suggestion where maybe in the future I might add more ideas, but, there were other class ideas of theater kid, art student, dancer, popular kid, etc. Really just any kind of cliche you could think of in school, sort of. And that was kind of the idea. Now, overall, each class has 3 little subclasses, which I'm kind of building this around the idea that everything's hidden, which, bit of a risky move, I know. So when you're, for example, because this is isekai themed or whatever, it is going to have a focus around the system as to why these random students have combat abilities. So the subclasses are just going to be kind of hidden, and I'm actually going to use sound effects for the campaign, which some of them you might recognize. I got the scream for the medic bag from Payday 2, Up All Night to Get Lucky, literally the line from Daft Punk. Cheerleader just has a Michael Jackson sound effects and Willy Wonka, the Willy Wonka line. There is a third secret class, or a third secret subclass, which each class has the ability to get. Now, this first bit is just me going to be kind of explaining a bit of this, since I'm not sure anyone would be really watching the screen all that much. And if I'm going to make this into a bit of a video. Now, as for the nerd and goth, I didn't really put much effort into them since, like I said, these were just ideas I popped down while on the train. But the subclasses are honestly just kind of based around that. I was like, well, one's screaming, might as well go for a berserker type build. The other one is literally says lucky in the word, so let's go with that as well. First subclass, which was the medic bag sound effect, has 3 names. So as the subclass evolves at the levels, its name also evolves. It starts as Chargin' Chuck and goes to One Hit Wonder and finally to Sportin' Adonis. Bunch of silly names, but I think it's neat. Kind of wrote a little silly description which you can read. Not really, probably going to be not really though, since stuff like this doesn't really get mentioned in campaigns. But I like being over-detailed. I did not get around to the abilities, but I do have a general direction where I want to take these. Like, this one really is just, like, the first class is going to be using football skills to take down enemies, so probably some sort of knockback tackle of sorts, among other things. I'm not really sure about abilities, since I don't really make unique classes all that often. I make unique enemies and such, but that's a lot easier than making a unique class, since you can just take a bit of a pre-existing thing. The second idea, for anyone curious, was a perk system, which is basically the feats. Kind of wanted to have unique feats as well. And I have a small system in place. Now, I'm sure most people would just despise this, but it's something unique, where you have the option between picking perks that you know what they do, or picking perks where you just have a weird sounding name, but you don't know what they do. For example, one of the secret perks is called Half Dozen Eggs, where people using long phrases instead of saying things simply absolutely pisses you off. So +2 to strength while enraged. Kind of a somewhat broken feat in a sense, because there's not really much blocking it. But there are some that just kind of penalize you. I don't have many at the moment, but some of them are kind of useless, some of them aren't. All of them are kind of multi-purpose. And then I have known perks. I don't have many written down at the moment, but I would be going through the D&D feat list and reworking some. My goal with this is to make it an entire book, essentially. Campaign book or whatever. Now, there are also class perks, which you can take as well. Which also, not really sure what to do with class perks, but class perks are ones that really only apply to the class. I mean, kind of. Hard to really say. Honestly, this is mostly just work in progress. I think for now, though, I am going to be doing a bit of world building. I'm going to first divide the page into probably 3 sections. First section I'll have be for quests, and I'll just title that Outlines as well, since I do want to outline the quests a bit. Second one, I will do major areas, cities and other things like that. And I think the third category I will just title as, what should I do? I think I'll just title this as storylines. Now I'll do a separate Google Doc for enemies. However, in the meantime, I do want to get some of these down in the first place. Hello, cat. How are you today? Wow, Twitch really did change how... Oh, good. My audio is good. What in the world? Is that a goblin? Okay, that is a weird emote. I've never seen that emote before. Now, I do actually have some quest idea. It's a pig twerking. Well, that's silly. I do have a few quest ideas in mind. The first is Moonlich, which I actually used the Moonlich in my one-shot that I made, which I still have to make a YouTube video on. I think you're the silly one for spamming pig twerking emotes. So I'll put the Moonlich quest line into both quests and storylines. And I think I'll actually just start writing down the storyline for the Moonlich, since that can usually help give direction for the quest. Now overall, the idea behind the Moonlich was quite literally that the Lich's medium is the moon itself. That is how he is alive. Which, let me tell you, that kind of annoyed the crap out of my party when they found that out. Granted, the goal of the one-shot was to bring a wizard that would seal the Lich, since this was a bit of a starting level. Yeah, most people don't expect my voice to sound like this. I can also go really high. I can go a little bit higher. My voice is actually really sore since I haven't been speaking for 3 months. Turns out what that does is it actually deteriorates your vocal cords. Now, let's see. Moonlich, what's that called? I call it a medium, but I don't actually know what the thing that contains his soul or magical power is called. But either way, his medium is the moon itself. So you would have to destroy the moon if you wanted to kill the Lich, which, as you might imagine, might be impossible in a D&D setting. If this were an anime, that'd be another thing, but sadly it isn't. Yeah, that tends to happen. Not talking for 20 years will do that. I have a friend who also barely talks, and they're actually at risk from their vocal cords needing to be removed from not talking, because apparently that can have put your body in a dangerous position where it could treat your vocal cords as a disease. I still phrase that horribly, but that was basically the gist. Have to destroy the moon to kill him. He used to be the Royal Archmage. Oh yeah, you're mute. There's a bit of a difference. One's damaged, one is just not using them. Compared to you, your body has already adjusted to that state of your vocal cords. With the friend, though, her vocal cords deteriorated from lack of use, so the body struggles to deal with that. Now, I do actually have a name for this Moonlich. Where did I put him? Marvinian Thornclaw. That's what I called him. I named him Marvinian Thornclaw. Now, this Moonlich quest actually... No, you never did share your human mimic story. Or your human mimic monster. The Moonlich quest actually comes from my one-shot, where he is he's currently sealed in the dungeon beneath the castle. Reason for being sealed in underneath the king's castle. I actually don't know if this tapping is audible in the stream, but I hope not. For being sealed underneath the king's castle is because he was lured there by the king. Since he was the Archmage. I actually have to look at this. I might actually just incorporate this slightly. Good Lord, what is that thing? That is an eldritch abomination. Oh, are you saying you drew that? Because if you drew that, that is fantastic. Well, that gave me a whole bunch of ideas. Oh, you got it commissioned. Yeah, that is very nice. Now, the basic premise of the Moonlich questline is there are 2 parts to it currently. The 2 parts are, let's see, 2 parts to it. First part is his lab, essentially. The lab where he is reborn as the Lich. The mimic wears the skin of a priest, and its fake face is actually a part of its exoskeleton because it's actually a skin-wearing bug of sorts. You know, that just reminds me of Overlord. The Pleiades, if you know who those are. I believe her name was Entoma Zeta. You should look up Entoma Zeta. Her mask is also a bug. Even her voice is a bug itself. Let's see, the first part of the... I'm getting sidetracked. Yeah, I guess that's fair. Well, I don't know. Either way, the first part of the Lich quest line was the Lich was the lab where he was reborn. The second part is the death dungeon, as I call it, beneath the castle. Now, I might have another part before that, depending on how back I want to go in the history of this world, but for now I think I'm just going to get the basics down. Now, for the death dungeon, the essential points is party of knights hired by king. Venture down there with Frederick. I believe his name was Frederick. Yeah, Frederick, the king's advisor, who is a high-level... let's see. If the entire party dies, which they will, They respawn back in time, basically, at the start of the floor. Now, for anyone curious about this quest, I will upload a video to YouTube about it once I get the chance, where I go over the creation process of my first ever campaign. Since my group that I played it with actually did love it. See, it sounds bizarre to force the party died, but what I did was I just made each floor absurdly deadly. The first floor, for example, is the treasury room. Touching any of the treasure in any way kills you dead, just on the spot, instant death, Rick and Morty style, like from that one clip. And because the room is filled to the brim with gold, funny enough, the party I ran with, 4 people instantly went ahead and just touched a bunch of the gold. One more person tried touching the gold another way, and the last person made it to the next floor and then immediately died to the very lethal trap that I had there. The second floor was a puzzle room that was basically designed to take a few attempts to solve. So when the last party member died, they all respawned there and learned about that little bit of lore. First floor was made fast, second floor was made lethal as a way of kind of teaching the player properly about the mechanics of the dungeon, rather than it being a, whoops, you died to enemies, deal with it type of thing. That was basically my thought processes, because it's really annoying if you play a video game, for example, and you're guaranteed to fail a fight, whereas if you fail a puzzle and respawn, that feels a lot more like it was something within your power, especially because there were riddles for the floors as well, which Frederick even told them, don't touch the treasure, and what did they do? Immediately touch the treasure. So kind of a bit of karma. It's honestly funny watching their reactions where I'm like, now I know you're dead, but you're not out of it yet. Wait and see what happens next. And you could just see on their face of confusion as they start thinking over every single possibility. Now look, another bot. Oh good, Twitch finally figured out how to deal with bots. Can ban it now. A recent villain is a bard nymph that has a disease that makes him laugh uncontrollably, randomly, like the Joker from the movie The Joker. And basically, the only way he controls laughter is singing, but when he sings, it becomes reality. The best way to describe it is my friend was a paladin, but the villain sang a song about how gods didn't exist and he lost his holy power. You know what? I'm going to actually make an NPC that can't control his laughter, and his laughter is just awful. Let's see. Work in progress ideas. Let's see. Threatening NPC that's friendly, but has evil laughter Tourette's. I spelled torrents. I don't know what I mean. Yeah, like that could be funny. Walk into a shop, walk into the shop at the beginning of the campaign. Shopkeeper just laughs like the most maniacal villain possible. Everyone starts suspecting him as things start going wrong in town. Good lord, that is dark. The evil king enjoyed his laughter, and he is forced to work as a jester. Let's see, final part of the quest line for the F dungeon was just reach the Lich and seal him using Frederick's powers. parentheses timed battle. Now, I do actually want to go a bit more into detail about if I was royalty like that, that does seem like a possibility. That does seem like a possibility. Let's see. Lab storyline. Truth be told, I'm not exactly sure what to do with the lab. I have a general location idea. I was thinking, I was thinking a quartz mine of sorts. So the lab would be in, if anyone's ever seen a quartz mine, it's kind of like a cone-shaped basin where they staircase out the quartz slabs they mine, because that's the best way to mine the quartz slabs rather than just like a deep pit or whatever. So this massive basin would kind of just be where there would be multiple rooms that this lab was kind of stretching out from. Because all in all, quartz would definitely be a great moneymaker in a fantasy world, assuming nobles buy them. Let's see, quartz mine used as the money-making method for the archmage's plans. Evil Lab was built. Thinking his Evil Lab was built. Should I do segmented rooms though? Because the Death Dungeon, for example, was basically parts of the Death Dungeon came from his lab. Like the rooms of the lab itself were basically ripped from space and teleported to the spot underneath the castle. So I'm also wondering if this should potentially just be some sort of sci-fi, like not actually sci-fi, but like if anyone's ever seen one of those sci-fi lab areas where there are just sections of the lab missing. Actually, now that I think about it, having the lab be in a ring pattern around would actually work pretty well, I think. Evil Lab was built ring-shaped around the mine. So that way, entering parts of the lab, you'll just have empty chasms of sorts. And at other sections, you might have small rooms to look into. So that the sections that were forcibly ripped out left chasms in the mine. Now, truth be told, I'm not really sure how in depth I should be going with each of these quest lines. If this were a one-shot, I could plan it around a 2-day campaign at the most, 6 hours, sort of. But as a story, as a quest line in a campaign, I'm not too used to making campaign quest lines. Let's see, what were some of the other quest lines I had? Actually, I didn't really have much. Most of my other ideas come from one-shots as well. Now, one-shots are much easier to make, because you can just plan around a 6-hour campaign rather than something long-term. I do have to get the general map going. I do think I want to use a starting village cliche. I think a starting village cliche would be a good idea. Though, I'm thinking I might go with a major capital of sorts. Because the one shot with the Moon Lich has the king. Oh, right. I named the kingdom Denmarkia. Or wait, what did I name the kingdom? Because the king is named Denmarkius. But I can't find where I named the kingdom. Honestly, I'm pretty bad with names. I couldn't think of a good king name, so I just went with Denmarkius. Pretty good idea, all in all. Right, I also have to make a character section here. Let's see. First character. Actually, I can just copy and paste these character descriptions from my one-shot. I think that'll be better. A bit time-saving of sorts. Here we go, world building. There we go. So we got 10 Marcus. The king is a tactic mass. Rage opposing. Frederick King's most just age. Sorry if you will. Also high age, good swordsman, secret knowledge, as he's meant to be unassuming servant by the king's side. Mysterious woman I can actually just remove since that was a goddess in disguise. And then Marvidian Thornclaw. Hello, Nikon Moon. Welcome to the stream. I'm making a D&D campaign right now. I know, strange for my typical Bloons gameplay. Yeah, feel free to lurk, Cat. There's not really much to see on screen considering I'm writing, and that takes a little while. And you're probably just going to be listening to the ramblings of a madman anyways. Now, let's see. High Lich refers to himself as Marvin. When greeting someone due to his past, Marvin used to be the High Sorcerer for the King. However, when he learned of a special way to become an immortal Lich, he took it, committing many atrocities. Thus why he is sealed at the bottom of the dungeon. Frozen in time, lore explained later. Marvin's appearance is completely human, with no hints of being undead. Yeah, okay, that seems good for characters. I think that's a good start for characters there. Major area, I'll put temp name in parentheses. And just name the first major kingdom Denmarkia. I'm really not very good at names. Let's see. Let's put in brackets. Country, I guess. Not really sure how to differentiate the countries and kingdoms, but I mean, it is kind of the same thing in a fantasy setting. I'm wondering if I should go a route with potentially using other cliches, just going maybe Arabian or Dwarvish with the other kingdoms. Man, nothing is really coming to mind for me. I think I'll just put this on hold for now. I got the basic outline of the world building. I want to go back to the characters since that was my initial goal. Initially was planning to get down 3 class perks and the 3 subclasses for each class. Cheerleader, still have to do the second class, which first class I have subclasses as Minstrel, Diva, and Idol. Though I'm not exactly satisfied with the names, which is why I have it marked in red for anyone looking at the screen. Anything marked in red is something that I plan on renaming in the future. Second class, however, was Magician, Siren, and Enchantress, going off the World of Pure Imagination. What should I do for the description, though? Considering this is a cheerleader. I know. Being used to... Being used to changing and... No, that's not good. Being used to appealing to people... No, I don't really have a good idea for this. Maybe I should transfer the Enchantress subclass to the Goth. For the Goth, at least, I do want a witch of sorts. Bit cliche, but it is what it is. Engineer, what's a good secret title for you know what? I can just use the TF2 sound effect. Sentry going down. First subclass will be Sentry going down, and we'll do Mechanic as the first name, which shifts over to what would be the end goal. Yeah, there's really not many words for mechanic. I kind of have to look up synonyms for that. Let's see, synonyms for engineer. Designer, architect, fabricator, mastermind. That's a good one. Mastermind can be the third one, and engineer can be the middle ground. So the subclass will be mechanic, engineer, and mastermind. For the names, description. I do have a good description for this one. But first, I am picky about the font styling. Let's see, description. Years of obsessing over robots and machines has left you in quite the predicament. In a fantasy world without electricity. Without electric components, I guess. No, that's not good. Well, what's a good word for that? Electric... I guess just in a world without machines. Years of obsessing over computers and robots and computers, I guess. So it's up to you. Let's see. So taking on such a challenge, you decide it's up to you to Man, I'm kind of slow with this. Probably not the most interesting stream, but I don't know. Figured this would help with writing. Kind of is. So taking on such a challenge, you decide it's up to you to rebuild the things you... to rebuild the things you love in this world. Honestly, though, this might be better for the secret class. But if so, then what do I do for... You know what? I think for second class, I can just do another TF2 sound effect. Burns. Bit silly using sound lines for hidden subclass names. But then I can go kind of a trap expert for that. Secret class can be the engineer route with turrets and stuff like that. I think that works better. But then that leaves me without the first class. Which I'm not exactly sure what to do for the first class for... Oh, wait a minute, it's a nerd. I can just go the wizard route. You know what? This would probably be the only obvious class. You're wizard heavy. Yeah, I mean, there's no reason not to let the nerd be a wizard. As for the second class, however, I think the names will be... Annoyance. You know what? Annoyance will be the first class name. Annoyance, Lego Scatter, and I'm definitely going to be changing these names later once I think of something better. Annoyance, Lego Scatter, and I don't know, what's a good one? I guess just Trap Master. You know what? I'm sure there's a video game with like good names that I could just borrow. First one, I definitely think we can go. You know what? I do actually like the idea of there being slight overlap. Like using Magician as like a first tier for all the magic focus classes. And then it changes to something more specific as they develop themselves. Like even the Enchantress started as a magician. Because I do think that could work. Because all in all, magic is just kind of tricks of sorts. And for the second and third names, I definitely think Archmage is a good final step. No reason to get too fancy with this one. Archmage and... I mean, it's kind of just D&D all over. You know what? I can do Fledgling. Fledgling to Magician to Archmage. That works. Fledgling's a good starting word. Would mean that I would have to find a new word for the Enchantress class, but I can deal with that later. You know, that does still leave me with one class missing. I want 5 classes total for this, at least as the base. But I'm not really sure what else would work well with these 4 existing stereotypes. I'm not really sure at all. Let's see. So we have, what other stereotypes do we have in school? We have, I guess quiet kid is an option, but that's not really, that doesn't really feel like a class type I could work with. We have the quiet kid, we have the, I mean, rich kid was an initial idea at the beginning, but I couldn't really think of a way that could work well, considering the whole isekai theme. I mean, I have 5 great class ideas. I just can't think of a good one I'd want to use that's unique enough. The others kind of fit into one of the other areas. I don't know. Been way too long since I've been to school to know any of the cliches. Oh, wait a minute. I can just Google some of this. School cliches. For students. Jocks, popular kids, bands, loners, preppy, stoner. Stoner? Should I? I mean, that is an option. What else is there? Snob, currents, artsy, rednecks, religious, hippies. Oh, you know what? That's perfect. We can have the religious kid or whatever for the holy powers or whatever. Why didn't I think of that? Wow, did people really suggest farmers as a cliche in schools? That is bizarre. What kind of a survey was this? Now, what should I label that as? Because even with I'm actually not sure what to label it. I think I'll just title it Religious Kid for time being. But I don't really have... Oh, wait a minute. There's Tattletale and there's Teacher's Pet. That's what it is. Teacher's Pet. Perfect. We shall go with Teacher's Pet. Knew I was missing something obvious. So for the Teacher's Pet, we definitely want to go the Paladin and or Cleric route. And actually for the secret class, I like the idea of if the Teacher's Pet rats someone out enough, then that is what impresses the mentor. Let's see, rat out criminals enough. No, I'll do rat out heretics. Ooh, actually, that'd be interesting. The teacher's pet rats out a bunch of heretics and then ends up as a what was that called? What's that section called in the church? The I don't know. There's usually a name for it in animes, but I forget what it's called. Read out heretics enough to impress insert name. I like that idea a lot, though. Absolutely absurd, but even still. You know, I'm wondering if I should potentially have some music going for this writing stream. But I feel like that might ruin the tone a bit. I don't know, I might potentially do that for future streams. I'm not sure if people would prefer to hear music or if they'd just prefer to hear my voice. Now, I do still need to get the names for... Let's see, I have the jock mostly done class-wise. Do still need to do the abilities, of course, but I'll get to that later. Whoops, that's a typo. Cheerleader, I do still need a second class for the cheerleader. First one's a bit of a dance fighter, so what else could I do with it? You know what, I could go a bard route, to be honest. Wait, but that's the first one. Man, I did too much with the first one. First subclass is too much. You know what? Probably gonna annoy a bunch of people, but I'm just gonna name the second subclass Butt Daddy. And I'm just gonna make it the rich whiny girl. First name of the subclass, Helpless. Second name... And we'll just have this class be around manipulation, essentially. Puppeteer. Ooh, that's a good name. Puppet Master. Oh, I like that a lot. We'll do Helpless to Exploiter to Puppet Master. Let's see. You grew up spoiled. Spoiled and popular as a cheerleader. Not leaving you with many practical skills. Granted, you were still pretty enough to get by in life. You grew up spoiled in looks and popularity as a cheerleader, not leaving you with many practical skills. Granted, you were still pretty enough to get by in life, and that doesn't change in this world either. When all you can do to get by is that's not a good line. In this world, you don't need to fight. When you can have everyone else fight for you. That's a good description. I like that. Puppet Master. I don't know why I didn't think of that before. And as for the third class, Impress the Assassin Queen, not really sure how you would impress her as a cheerleader. All things considered. You know what? I do like the idea that impressing the Assassin Queen can be dumb luck. The jock has to put in actual effort, but the cheerleader can get by with dumb luck. Either through dumb luck or pure stupidity. On your part, you managed to impress the Queen of Assassins. So much so that she didn't take no for an answer. When she decided to train you. Your life of sitting and letting others do all the work. Your life of sitting back and letting others do all the work is no longer an option. With the intense training she now makes you do. All in an attempt to make you the perfect assassin. Honestly, I have no idea if these descriptions will ever see the light of day, but I still like writing them. Let's see, gotta write down the abilities. There we go. Let's see, cheerleader has bard of sorts, class that doesn't have an equal, and an assassin. So we'll do... What should I do for the names? I could go with a similar style for the jock with the mercenary captain. And just do... No, because I want to save those. I want to save the names that I just thought of for a cult, for the cultist thing. Because the other idea I had was initiate and member, but I feel like that would work better for the goth in a cult situation. So I'm not really sure what to do for the names. Yeah, I can't think of a single thing. I'll have to come back to that. For class perks, though, that does give me another good idea, which was And I forgot it. Never mind then. Nerd, however, let's see. We have the fledgling magician archmage. For the description, in your world, your brains were fantastic at math and science. In this world, however, no one really. No, that's dumb. No reason to belittle math in a fantasy world. They definitely use it. In this world, thankfully, magic is a math-based language. So the skills transferred over with a bit of work. Now, using your brains once again, you're determined to conquer this system. Bit of a simple description. Second one was the Trap Master. Which I'm honestly not really sure what to do with it. Description-wise, I could potentially go with potentially do this. I think I'll just read what I wrote after I type it out. So there'll probably be moments of silence while I'm typing. But watching all sorts of animes and cartoons, you're used to cocky main characters and villains always knowing what to do. In this world, there's no reason to act otherwise with your brains. With your own confidence and your intelligence, you decide the best way to conquer your foes is through traps and what? Traps and poisons, I guess. Leaving no room for escape. Kind of interesting that both the nerd and the cheerleader will have a assassin type class. Now these will be different. The nerd will be completely trap focused, whereas the cheerleader will be more focused on dagger skills and fighting. So the nerd won't exactly have stealth per se. He'll more be like throwing sticky bombs at the enemies type of thing. Or nail bombs and stuff. Ooh, nail bombs. That's a good idea. Actually, for abilities, I'll just quickly... Ooh, I have the hiccups. Actually, just quickly jot down bomb types. And put craft bombs. And then as for the other the last description, let's see. Take on to subject challenge, you decide to... Yeah, let's redo this description for the mechanic one. Now that it's going to be the mentor to the alchemist or engineer. Let's see. It wasn't ever in doubt if you would be able to impress the such geniuses. What was in doubt was if you would even meet them in the first place. Thankfully, fate decided to gift you such an opportunity. Leaving you at the chance and funds to build weapons of destruction. Weapons and machines of destruction. It wasn't ever in doubt if you would be able to impress such geniuses. What was in doubt is if you would even meet them in the first place. Thankfully, fate decided to gift you such an opportunity, leaving you with the chance and funds to build weapons and machines of destruction. That seems like a fun enough description. As for the... Actually, that finishes off the nerd class as well. Only thing remaining is the names for the cheerleader and then the goths classes. So we have a witch, world of pure imagination, and I don't know what to do for the secret class, actually. Oh wait, we still have the teacher's pet. Almost forgot about that. Because I want to have a bit of replayability with these characters. In a sense that if someone decides to use them, I mean, obviously, anything done with my world could be done with regular classes, but if you do decide to go the kind of isekai route with these characters, then, or classes, I guess I should say, then I would like a bit of replayability with subclasses. So World of Pure Imagination will be the magician, you know what I could do. No, I don't really know what to do for the first name. Magician, Siren, Enchantress is what I have so far. And I don't like the magician one. But I can't really think of a good name before that. Illusionist. You know what? That's a good idea. Illusionist. Illusionist, Siren, Enchantress. That'll be good. And then abilities as well. Okay. Now for the witch, what would be a good sound effect for that? You know what? I can have some of these be obvious. No reason not to. I could just have... You know what? Actually, I can use that line from that one movie. Hocus Pocus, that's what the movie's called. I can just play the sound bit from that song with Come Little Children. I think that encapsulates a witch perfectly. Especially because I do feel like a creepy witch in a forest is always a taboo thing. They can be good, don't get me wrong, but I mean, no reason to beat around the bush with those people. But what do I do with names? What do I do with names? You know what? I just thought of something for the secret class. Something I could do for this world is potentially eldritch gods. Yes. Do potentially eldritch and regular gods. No, I'm not a fan of the eldritch idea. I do think that it could be fun to have taboo gods, of course, where the gods of this world, rather than being power-based, are belief-based. So there can be taboo gods based on taboo subjects. Let's do join the taboo cultists. For the secret class. And then I can do, let's see, third class information. For names, we have initiate. Initiate. And then I'm not really sure what to do for the other two names. Actually, let's just see what Google says. Cultist member status. Oh. Names of roles in a cult. Lay followers, disciples, priests, warrior priests, arch-lector. Ooh, that is a fun name. Oh wait, this comes from Warhammer. I don't know what an arch-lector is. Apart from the high priest, who outright lead. Our senior priest of the cult. If I Google arch-lector, will I just get Warhammer, or is that a... Okay, that is just a Warhammer thing. Though I do think a prophet could be a good idea. For the 3rd level. Honestly, probably will turn some people away having a cult subclass, but it is what it is. Initiate, prophet, and what should I do in between? I feel like... Is there a good title there? I guess just disciple. And as for the description, something along the lines of... You never really anticipated yourself joining a cult. Though you weren't really left much choice. After encountering their fanatical members. All in all, it hasn't turned out the worst, considering the abilities you've gained. From siding with them. Yeah, I like that description. Especially because this isn't a backstory you add to the character. This is something you're pulled into. And I can't really imagine a student just deciding, you know what, I'm going to join a cult. Even as weird as students are. Especially considering I don't believe goths are cult things. I mean, that's just the fashion style after all. Yeah, I mean, they're into the weird subculture, I guess. I guess I'm phrasing it wrong. More so mean that, yeah, while a goth might be the most likely person to join a cult, when they're a student, they're not exactly an evil person type of thing. As for the witch, though, I still can't think of any good names for the witch. How about the teacher's pet? What do we have for classes? First class, something along the lines of perhaps... I actually can't think of any subclasses for the teacher's pet. I mean, I have a general idea, but can't think of any good names. You know what? Absolutely absurd name. Absolutely absurd idea. But what if one of these subclasses had just straight up had the ability to, like, summon someone's mother? Imagine you're in a fight with, like, the villain or whatever, and some guy just summons, like, the villain's mother, and just straight up in front of the villain, hey, your son has been bad. That would be an absolutely crazy ability. Problem is, I don't know what I would even add that to. Actually, I could go a Ghost Rider sort of route. I feel like that could be pretty cool. Yeah, let's see, Ghost Rider abilities. Yeah, it has Penance Stare. There's Sin Manipulation. Oh, just see the past sins. And what weapons has he used? Chain, pistol. I mean, while that might... I mean, the problem is the Ghost Rider thing would really work well with, like, a heretic prosecutor or whatever. But I feel like that can just be, like, a regular paladin of sorts. So I'll just list paladin here. And then for the first one, I'll just list Ghost Rider. So we just have a Ghost Rider. And yeah, I'm just straight up going to give the Ghost Rider the ability to summon Parent and Tattletale. I can go in more depth in the abilities later on. As for the second class, I actually can't really think of anything. Straight A student, so... Could be something with insight of sorts. I could have a insight related class, but what would that be similar to? You know what? It could be similar to a druid, as crazy as it sounds. Because the nerd specializes in craftsmanship and other related things, but the teacher's pet, I could definitely see some sort of camping trip and just knowing everything about nature. So I can just do druid type thing for the second class. Honestly, I like what I have so far. I got 5 classes, 3 subclasses for each. Do still need to add a bit more information for some of this stuff, but I feel like that's a good starting point for that. Let's go deal with world building. Let's just get some stuff written down. How about the starting area? Change that back to normal text. There we go. Starting area. Small town. I feel like Denmarkia, the big kingdom, could have 4 towns, 4 small towns on the cardinal directions. So each of the 4 towns would be... Oh, welcome back, Cat. Have you been hearing anything I'm saying, or did you just mute it to game? Let's see, 4 cardinal directions for the 4 small towns as checkpoints, of course, as checkpoints of a sort. Fair enough. I didn't do anything interesting. I just made more. I just worked on the classes some more. I've went with teacher's pet for the 5th class. You're playing Simpsons Hit and Run. Oh, how fun. I decided to make the teacher's pet subclasses. Just the first one is basically Ghost Rider. The second one's a druid type, and the third one is just a heretic prosecutor. I didn't really know the direction to go with these, so I'm kind of just waiting for inspiration to strike. Right, you bought Wii games, didn't you? How about you? Do you have any good... Do you have any good names for, like, a witch subclass? Because I'm doing, like, 3 names per... as you level up in the class. So, like, for the second subclass, they start as an illusionist, go to siren, and then switch to enchantress. But I can't really think of what to do for witch. Actually, I just thought of something. What is the head witch of Walpurgis Night called? The Walpurgis Night. Well, that's the final name. The final evolution of the witch is just the Walpurgisnacht. I was not expecting that to be the actual name. A neophyte? Now I gotta Google what that is. Oh, actually, you know what? That could work out really well. Oh, never mind. Neophyte has a more religious use, so I think I would probably end up using that for the teacher's pet, since I can use that for the third one. But that's still useful. Whisper. You know, I do like the spirit route, though, actually. Something like spiritualist, maybe? I don't know. Wait a minute, let me try something. What were other names for witches? In the Salem witch trials. Surely they had some good slurs for witches that would... I mean, I know it's bizarre looking up slurs for witches, but... Wow, is there really just nothing? There's really just nothing. Ooh, actually, corrupted. Corrupted could be the starting one. That just leaves the second name. Yeah, second one probably could just be witch. Corrupted to a witch to a Walpurgisnacht. Kind of a wonky progression set up there. And then as for the description, alongside the normal magic of this world, there exists some more... What's the word? There exists some more corrupted and physical magic. resembles the magic scene used by starting down this path is not one that can be escaped. I'll leave the description there. I might think of something better in the meantime. Yeah, I like writing. It's a shame writing isn't the most interesting stream, though. Probably be more entertaining if I was drawing or something. Or if I was actually writing a story rather than a D&D campaign. Since at least with the story, it's just kind of a linear path. With this, I'm kind of hopping all over the place with ideas. Anyways, for the starting bit, I like the idea. Small starting town. Players are put in one of the 4 cardinal towns via D4 dice roll. And actually, I could give each of the towns a different quest lot, mini quest area. Or I can't even speak. Could give each of the 4 towns different quests. So, north, I feel like, as much as I want to make the North Mountains, that just feels too cliche. I'll give the North Swamplands. North is swamplands. East is the mountains. You gotta have the mountains eventually. East is the mountains. South is the forest. That one will just remain cliche. And west shall be the desert. I think that works well. Swamplands could be... You know, I didn't really consider the enemy types all that much. Let's make another category here. I'll have to reorganize all this later when I get the chance, but in the meantime, I feel like I'm not really sure, to be honest. I feel like north will be, or swamplands. We'll just say swamplands. Swamplands can be lizard folk. I think that's a good way to go. Lizard folk, orcs and goblins, obviously. You gotta always have the orcs and goblins. Every place will have orcs and goblins. They're inescapable. They're like rats. Except these ones will be unintelligent. I'll make sure to outline that importantly. Because I do actually want to incorporate a goblin mine in the mountains. And I feel like I can definitely do... Oh, actually, that gives me a genius idea for a storyline. We'll label this as the dwarfs' labor camps. That's a horrible name. Dwarves Monopoly. Let's see. Out in the mountains to the west. Right, the mountains were the west, right? I already forgot. East, the mountains were the east. Out to the mountains to the east. The dwarves have managed to conquer the rugged and what does ill-traversable mean? I guess just ill-traversable. Now that's a horrible wording. I mean, just badly traversable, I guess. Impassable. There we go. That's the word I was looking for. The rugged and impassable mountains. This happens to include the monsters here too. So wary a traveler, much less an adventurer, dares cross paths with any creature there, lest they risk the wrath of the dwarves. Because I like the idea that they basically tamed the goblins out in the mountains and forced them to mine for them. Because that can give a pretty interesting quest line where you're thrown into a scouting party, and the first thing you see is a bunch of goblins mining, like, intelligently, I guess. Cranes, carts, all that sort of thing, none of it looking dilapidated or abandoned. So I will have to label goblins as intelligent here. And I think I can put in quest lines the goblin mine. And I'll just put mountains in parentheses so I remember. What other creatures would be here? You know what? They would definitely have dragons. Dragons would definitely be the fuel of their forges. I mean, not literally, of course. I don't want to make the dwarves too strong. But I do feel like they would have come to some sort of agreement. Maybe an idea that the dwarves just straight up fashion gold valuables and trinkets for the dragons. Oh my gosh. I could bling the dragons. Imagine you're adventuring and you just see a dragon wearing a golden necklace. One specifically made for them. Oh, that is a fantastic idea. Dragons and dwarves came to a mutual agreement. Dragons don't disturb. And let them use the heat of the volcano, I guess. I'm unsure what they would really be, what the dragons would really benefit. Use the heat of the volcano. Potentially a trade. I guess there could be potential trades between the dragons and dwarves. It wouldn't be completely out of the question that a dragon could regenerate its scales or something. Actually, crazy idea. I mean, along the idea of like baby teeth in humans, I could definitely see dragons having parts of themselves that they shed. Maybe as the baby dragons grow up, they shed their claws or something. Or honestly, yeah, shed their teeth, and then they're just leftover materials. Trade in their useless baby teeth to the dwarfs, and the dwarves just straight up provide them with jewelry that they can wear. Oh, that is crazy. That is, I don't actually think I've ever seen that before. Let me just try. Let me just try a few quick Google searches, because if I can find any clip from a show or anything like that. I mean, there's definitely ideas of dragons wearing jewelry, but there's really nothing in shows. Not even in like, yeah, no, there's nothing. So it's an unprecedented idea of sorts. There's a potential trade deal with shedded parts in exchange for jewelry and riches from dwarves. Keep spelling dwarves wrong. You just expect to add an S to the end of most everything. And again, typing on mobile is hard. Goblins, dragons, what else is there? Trolls, you know what? Trolls is a good idea. I could definitely see trolls being used as the major labor force, especially because I do actually like the idea from a webcomic I read. What's it called? Greatest Florist or whatever? Where the trolls actually eat rocks. So, and anything they digest is basically purified in a sense. Trolls eat rocks. Anything that passes through becomes semi-purified. Now, obviously, I'm going to have to rework everything if I decide to really go into depth with, like, the magic system or whatever. In the meantime, though, I just want to get some fun ideas out with a 5th edition system. Perhaps one day I'll flesh this out to something that could be written into like a full fantasy book, but in the meantime, no reason to complicate. Let's see, last we have the forest and the desert. Desert, I think, will have all the typical creatures. You can have the scorpions and all that sort of nonsense. Ooh, actually, since the desert is to the west, we could have like a rivalry between two lizard folk tribes, snake and lizard folk tribes. So the two are at war despite the fact that neither of them can really use each other's territory due to the difference in biology. Let's see. Lizard folk and snake folk wars. These two tribes of intelligent monsters are at war with each other. Despite neither race being able to utilize the other's territory due to biological differences, biological incompatibilities, I should say. Yeah, despite the two races being able to utilize each other's territories, they're still at war with each other. That could be a fun quest or storyline. Should I just do elves in the forest? It's a bit cliche, but the mountains in south are bordering each other. So, you know what? I do like just roping in storylines from things I read. I did recently read How to Raise Your Skeletons, and that had a fun dwarf and elf storyline where the two were at war against each other because of a magic dragon, pitting the two races against each other. I think that could be really interesting. The only problem is this is already starting to be a couple of major storylines in a campaign, so I have to figure out how I would balance those out. Because at least with the starting bit, you just have like maybe a guild hall or something, tavern, the usual. And the party naturally explores around with those things. But when you have multiple major storylines, you can't exactly have the world coming to an apocalypse in 20 different ways. That's just too much to handle. The Moon Quest, the Moon Lich is a minor story, something that could be ignored by the party. I should actually just do some side details. Can be ignored by party. And then also do major, because it is a potential major storyline. Goblin Mine is definitely a minor storyline. Minor quest line. I'll make the Lizard and Snake Folk Wars quest line and the Elf and Dwarf Wars another quest line. Problem is, these two both feel identical in a sense. The only question is how it interacts with the main kingdom. Because as much as I want to have all these little side stories around the place, they need to have some sort of impact on the overall world. The Elf and Dwarf Wars is definitely a matter of... Oh wait, I can't do that storyline. It doesn't fit with this world. The problem with the Elf and Dwarf Wars is because the magic dragon is pitting the two races against each other, he weakens the two of them so that he is then stronger. Yeah, okay, I can't do that. Never mind. You know what? I could do some sort of Romeo and Juliet thing. That's a possibility. That's a huge possibility. I still don't have any actual major threat with this world. I'm not experienced enough with campaigns. Let's see. Let's see what some other ideas are. D&D campaign. End goals. Because at least, like, in some of these, like Icewind Dale that I've been playing, there's definitely an actual direction to work with. I mean, Icewind Dale has the Frost Maiden. So what does this have? Because I don't want it to just be some world that you travel around in. Oh, wait a minute. If I go with the Isekai quest line, then the goal can just be a Demon King. I can just go with the cliche. Man, I really overthink things. Yeah, okay. So if I were to do a Demon King quest line of sorts, what is the general idea that we work with? Because I could utilize like the lizard folk and snake wars as a ally thing for the war. For other countries, honestly, I feel like I just need to get more countries in. So then major areas, I need 2 other kingdoms at minimum. And honestly, I could go a holy, and I could just rip from something else and just do a holy and empire. Holy kingdom and an empire. So then we have the kingdom, the empire, and the holy state. Empire, name to be determined, and then the holy state, also named to be determined. So I can have 2 major quest lines. One which is the 3 major countries at war with each other. And the second quest line is Demon King. I think because I'm wondering if the Isekai idea that I was working on earlier would work, because this would definitely work with the Demon King idea, but would it work well with the Warring Kingdoms idea? Because I'm not too sure on that aspect. I feel like it could still. Actually, you know what? I feel like it still could, because then you're just giving the players the option to interfere in said wars. And in fact, that would actually give a good reason for the... Let's see, let's do Romeo Dwarf and Juliet Elf. Which, I think that quest is self-explanatory. I hope I don't need to explain a Romeo and Juliet quest. I'll get around to writing it a bit. I do have a lot of ideas I'm juggling here. That's always the problem with writing. You get so many ideas you have to juggle around and just slowly narrow down as things go on. I do feel like... Because I want something with the goblin mine. Initially, in the one-shot the goblin mine idea comes from, it's more so town stop, essentially, where if you fight, you're doomed, but you can utilize it as a town to rest in sort of thing. With this, I do kind of want a quest of sorts, but I don't exactly have... Evil wizard? I guess just an evil wizard of sorts. I mean, that is the best option. Evil wizard, golems, and the like. Because I can't really see the goblins benefiting too much from... Now, that's a horrible lie. The goblins benefit massively from the alliance with the dwarves. The goblins would benefit massively in the sense that they're essentially a protected species. You go to the swamplands, you can just massacre goblins out the wazoo. You go to the mountains, you do that, well, then you have to answer to the dwarves. Though I could see a puppeteer. Puppeteer, evil wizard of sorts. Controlling goblins and golems. Thus harming the dwarves a bit. And this can be a precursor quest of sorts, I think. Yeah, this could be a bit of a precursor quest. So you can do the goblin mine quest, and in return that can benefit you in the Romeo and Juliet quest, which, as crazy as it sounds, I do kind of want to give the players the opportunity to take over an entire kingdom. If they take the right steps, of course. I feel like, because, with 3 countries warring each other, if a fourth party were to get involved, well, let's just say the chaos would be untold. The elves and dwarves are content staying in their own areas, and the lizard folk and snake folk aren't really much of a threat, but combined, that's where things get a bit dicey. Truth be told, I do kind of want to look up the Romeo and Juliet quest from RuneScape and take inspiration from that, though I will probably do that off stream. So let's figure out some details for this empire. What should we name the empire? I don't really have a good name for that, but we can go for the Blood Monarch of of sorts. I feel like that's always an option. I don't know. Is it wrong to just steal an entire plot from a webcomic? Because the webcomic has a very nice plot. I really like what they've done with the kingdoms and the wars happening between them. So, is it wrong? It's hard to say. I feel like I might just steal the entire thing. I mean, it's really good. Kingdom, for example, has a secondary kingdom where people are trying to gain independence. The empire is stable, but looking for a chance to start a continental war. The Holy State is having a civil war over, I guess, the right to succession. With the Pope and King factions. So I could have one major quest line either be stopping or ending the Continental War. With the dwarves, elves, and beast folk being a potential help with that. I don't know. I mean, the initial idea was just to kind of wing this, but here I am doing a bunch of outline stuff. You know, truth be told, I think I might call the stream here for today. Been streaming for 2 hours, bit long, but I mean, it's a bit short, I guess, all things considered, but I am feeling a bit tired. I doubt anyone actually watched this, but if you did, like, subscribe, I don't care, just fuck off.